Okay, so when we think about where do these reading elements come from that are in the text-dependent analysis prompts, those reading elements come from the ELA standards. Um, the thing about looking at the ELA standards is that the actual standard is written in a pretty concise manner. So if we take a look at this standard, this is a sixth grade standard, determine the central idea of a text and how it is conveyed through particular details, provide a summary of the text distinct from personal opinions or judgment. It's concisely written and sounds pretty simple. This is the benchmark that students are supposed to be able to achieve by the end of the year. They have to know how to find a central idea, how it's conveyed through details. So it sounds pretty simple. If you really deconstruct that standard, though, and look at what students have to be able to do to meet the proficiency of this standard, it's actually quite a lot. So that's what I have listed out here. Like if I were teaching this standard, what are all of the things that my students will have to be able to do to actually demonstrate that they can explain how central ideas convey through particular details of a text? So first I think about, well, you get a central idea through a series of knowledge and being able to exhibit different skills. So the first skill is students have to be able to distinguish between like non-essential details of the text, key details in a text. And I know students struggle with that sometimes. So they have to be able to tell the difference. That's the first thing. Then they have to be able to identify what are the key ideas in a text. Then they have to explain how key details support a main idea in the text. Then they have to identify and explain how key details support multiple main ideas in a text. Now, you might have some questions right now about this because you really have to know that there's a difference between central idea and main idea. And sometimes we forget that. Main ideas develop a central idea. So if you're looking at a text that is structured with different sections, this is an informational standard. So if you're looking at an informational text that has different sections, all of those different sections will have a main idea, and then those main ideas will help contribute to the central idea. So students need to be able to find multiple main ideas in an informational text. And then I mentioned text structure. They have to know that there are different types of text structures and how those main ideas are being revealed through the text structures. Then they can try to identify a central idea of a text, because all those main ideas are going to help them identify a central idea. And then finally, they'll analyze how the key details, the main ideas, and the text structure operate in conveying the central idea of a text. And this is much more complex when you break it down and think about it than just looking at the standard. So when students go to a text-dependent analysis prompt and those reading elements are in the prompt, you might see the element central idea in a text-dependent analysis prompt. You might see a prompt that says, how does the text structure help develop the central idea in this text? So this would be a reading element, and this would be a reading element. And that would be in the TDA prompt. But really, to look at this piece right here is kind of vague. How is central idea conveyed through particular details? Like you really have to break it down and think about what that standard is saying. But those reading elements in the TDA prompt come from these standards. Here is a reading element that's just right there. It's in the standard. It's right here too, particular details, but it's just not spelled out what those details are until you dig into it and get into, wait, how is central idea of a text developed? So there's a little bit of planning and thought as to what this standard is actually asking students to be able to do to help identify what all of those reading elements are.